What you're looking at here is an original character that I created a long time ago, and this is a particular illustration that I did during a drawing phase that I was going through about 5 years ago. Now this was before I started getting really serious about trying to become a practicing artist on his way to becoming an accomplished artist. And that is the journey I'm on now, and this is a representation of an illustration that I did during another one of my drawing phases in the past, where I was going to get serious about creating some sort of life for myself as an illustrator. And so I drew my old character Goardie once again, and it's interesting that while he has all the hallmarks that make him unique, that make him uniquely Goardie, that make him look very much unlike most characters you've ever seen. The big head, the googly eyes, the brown saggy eyelids, the lump on the head with one single hair, the scrawny body, the knobby elbows and knees, the distended stomach. These things are all unique to Goardie. For some reason this illustrated is truncated though. Goardie, one thing about Goardie, I've never really nailed down just how old he was. You know, that's always been a mystery to me. It's never been important. I always just figured he was anywhere from his late teens to, 75 years old. I don't really know how old he is. But one thing he is not is a young child. This looks like he's a young child. He could pass for a little old man, but he could also pass for a little old boy, something's wrong with this boy, but a little boy nonetheless. I think you'll agree. Anyway, there's something else missing from this illustration, and this is what I really want to get to and focus on in this video, because I could talk about, like this, just showing you this image leads to 17 different subjects. But let's focus on the one subject that I want to talk about, and that is what's missing from this illustration. Now, if this was an illustration simply to demonstrate what Goardie looks like, taken aside the fact that I drew him wrong, quote unquote, the idea that this is what Goardie looks like and this is an illustration of Goardie is fine, but there's something missing from this illustration if we want to go one step further. Now, if you can't quite figure out what that is, it might be because you make the same mistakes in your endeavors to illustrate things. So let's just look at a picture of Goardie that I drew recently. Now, this was done a couple of months ago, and if you don't read what's on the side, I'm going to point out that, here is Goardie at his appropriate, age. Whatever age he is, he can't be confused easily for a small child or a young boy. But he does have the big head, the googly eyes, the lump, the hair, the scrawny body, the floppy arms and legs, the knobby knees and elbows, big pot belly. This is a much more accurate and perfect character profile. This is what Goardie looks like. And I'm showing you that. By showing you this illustration, I'm showing you what Goardie looks like. So that's what the only problem is. If you're going for just developing a character profile, this is good enough. But I want to get into the practice of expanding my illustration abilities, and that means we've got to draw Goardie actually doing things. That means all our characters have to be doing things. Of course, there's an argument to be made for the idea that if you're submitting a character profile or a character concept to a client, you probably don't want to include a lot of extraneous stuff or even make him doing anything out of the context of just a simple presentation. There's an argument for that, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, okay, you're going to illustrate stuff. You want to present illustrations to people that move them. Well, the first thing you have to do is create illustrations of characters who are engaged in activities that tell stories, etc. That's where I'm going, and that is my ultimate goal. So why am I not doing that? Well, that's what I'm going to use this for, this set of action prompts that I got on DeviantArt. There's a link to it in the description so you can use it, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to do all of them. Or at least that's my plan. Saying you're going to do 100 pieces of art is one thing, but then actually doing it, that's another. Now, if I'm a practicing illustrator, I should be able to do this. This should be a side project that has no limit. There's no reason why I shouldn't be able to complete this. Anyway, I've been working on it. So I hope I've made my point about what I'm, just consciously think about doing illustrations of characters engaged in activities. Illustrations that get your audience help. Let me explain it. Let's go to the next image, and this is number 1. Now, the assignment is jumping. So I decided, okay, I'll be very creative and I'll try to be funny and all this stuff. And so here he is. I could go on and on about how I'm a little bit unhappy with this illustration. This is not really what I wanted to see, but I'm also happy about other things. I like the way the smoke came out. The fire is kind of okay. The color scheme is not very pleasing. Goardie's face is a cross between repulsive and hilarious. His anatomy is, my presentation of his anatomy is adequate but not very good. I didn't even bother to properly illustrate the diving board. This was the first one, and I just plowed through it and got it done. And the difference between this and this, I like this illustration much better. But you'll notice what's not missing from this. I'm trying to do a lot with this illustration, whereas I'm trying to do very little with this illustration. Do you see what I'm saying? The difference? You could be wondering what happens next, what caused this, how will it turn out? You can empathize with him or simply laugh at his misfortune. All of this stuff is going on in this illustration, and of course, very little is going on in this illustration. The difference is this illustration was intentional, and this illustration, the having nothing going on, it was not intentional. It was like a limitation of my imagination and my ability to understand what it is that I'm trying to make an illustration for and why anybody would want to look at it. This illustration is meant for behind the scenes stuff. Like, this is what Goardie looks like. That's what this one is purposely, and this one is decidedly not. Next picture. I was really proud of this because this was one of the earliest attempts in my endeavors to actually use perspective and get a handle on it. Also, airplanes. I couldn't draw airplanes for the life of me. About a week before I drew this, it was funny because I had decided that since I have no idea how to draw an airplane, maybe I better learn how to draw airplanes, and I went a week studying airplanes, and then, I had this assignment, Goardie falling, and I don't even know what that meant, and I decided what it would mean. It would mean he's falling out of an airplane, and it gives me another opportunity to be cute and, put Goardie through another harrowing situation and whatnot, and draw an airplane. So, yippee. So this is what I'm trying to say is, things come together. When you're really, really trying to focus on being a practicing illustrator, you're on the way to becoming an accomplished illustrator. So, I did the sky and the clouds. I'm really happy with the way this came out, even if it doesn't look like Goardie. One of the keys about Goardie is he looks like whatever I decide because he's a damn cartoon character, right? Look, where's his floppy hands? Where's his big floppy feet? Well, then, this was an attempt to create perspective, but that's the floppy. They're not important in this picture. What's important is this look of dread on his face, right? So here's number 3. He's just supposed to be sitting, so I'm thinking, what am I going to do? And look at the weird art style I've got here. He's so well, the first thing I did was, he's desaturated. It's weird. This is partly because I don't understand how to use the brushes in a consistent way, but this is interesting in a lot of reasons. But it's also interesting in the fact, to me anyway, it's at least an attempt. He's sitting, so what's he sitting doing? Sitting here feeling bad, I tried to give something more than just here's what he looks like. again, I'm beating a dead horse now, so let's just get on to the next one. Here's, I love this illustration. Another opportunity to be cute and just kind of like be a little mean to Goardie. And, you know, I really love the way this came out. I'm not sure what this style is. It reminds me of a couple of things. I don't have a handle on my style, nor do I have a handle on styles in general. I'm trying to find that. Used to say that my style is based on my... Oh, forget all that. Anyway, I'm really happy with the way this came out, except for this hand. I don't feel it's got enough three-dimensionality to it. But there's another picture of Goardie. Ha ha ha. Goardie is funny. Not the greatest composition in the world, but there's an understanding of human anatomy going on here that is not present at all in this image. Or maybe it is, and I'm just awesome. But I don't think I've ever drawn Goardie actually walking, because I've never given him a reason to walk. And, you know, here was just a great opportunity. You know, the subject is walking. And I don't draw characters walking a lot, because walking is a difficult action to capture. That was the challenge in and of itself. So I went with that, and I'm proud of the results. Again, I'm not trying to say, you know, I've created a piece of artwork that's worthy of any kind of accolades. I'm just saying that this is an ambitious study for me, and it turned out pretty well. Obviously, the point of Goardie is to be funny. Here I, for whatever reason, made you know, the first sketch I did, I said, hey, it looks kind of cute. I'll hang on to that. And I endeavored to maintain his sense of cuteness, and I felt, oh, it's ironic that he's cute. Or he's got, you know, he's eating a rat. That's supposed to be a rat. I don't know if you think, maybe you think it's an earthworm, but it's supposed to be a rat. Anyway, again, I'm not going for any awards. You know, drinking, okay, here's an opportunity to do a character drink. I don't think I've ever drawn a character taking a sip of water. Here, I've drawn a character taking a sip of water. Zippy. And I purposely made it cartoony just so that I wouldn't have to go too far down the rabbit hole of how the hell do you make a character taking a sip of water. Well, luckily I'm working with a cartoon character like Goardie, and it doesn't really matter. So I just, you know, did this Ren and Stimpy kind of look. Now, I don't know what I was thinking with this. You know, this almost doesn't look like Goardie. His head is completely misshapen. But, you know, I just said, oh, well, maybe he looks a little bit more like E.T., and I'm just focusing on creating this kind of three-dimensional look for him and exaggerating this idea of his jaw and his finger to his jaw, and this idea of, I wanted to make it, you know, again, I'm going for this Ren and Stimpy kind of look. So, you know, I just went with it, and there it is, you know, and I like this one too. This is really ugly. The color is kind of weird. His head is completely misshapen. I don't know why. Probably just to accentuate this idea that he's supposed to be in a sophisticated kind of mood. And so I literally made his head oblong instead of round, sort of this idea, you know, I don't know if you agree with me, but this idea that a character with a long rectangular head would have a sophistication about him that a character with a round head would have much harder time pulling off. You know, these are just like all this, you know, theoretical art stuff, theoretical psychology stuff, all kinds of stuff going on in here. The point is, here's number 9, and if I wasn't doing this action prompt exercise, I wouldn't be thinking about all these things. I'm not sure what I'd be doing. Maybe I'd be doing a cool spaceship, you know, blasting a giant robot into oblivion. I don't know. Who knows what I'd be doing? But what I'm doing is what I'm doing. That's the point. I don't know what I'd be doing. And that's why I took on this exercise, to give me a sort of a series of drawings to be doing while I'm studying. Because the other stuff that I'm doing, of course, is, you know, sketches and just studying the human form and studying value and color and all this stuff. And so I got like all these sketches and stuff. But these are a series of finished illustrations of Goardie doing things. Have I drilled that into your skull enough yet, or what? Here was an opportunity to draw Gourdie crying because the assignment said draw Gourdie crying. Well, let me tell you something. Gourdie doesn't cry. And even if he does, this is the result. Now, I've never even thought about this before because I would never make Gourdie crying. I would never put Gourdie in a situation where he would cry. Well, here I'm forced to, and I've decided that, you know, instead of saying Gourdie doesn't cry so I won't make him crying, I'll say, you know what? Gourdie, this says a lot about Gourdie, wouldn't you say? I mean, especially with this caption. You know, I'm trying to give you more than just a picture of what Gourdie looks like. I'm trying to tell you something about Gourdie. And I came up with this because somebody randomly put together a bunch of prompts, and I'm using them as an exercise. It's time for number 11, but I haven't done number 11 yet. I'm about to do it right now. So I get started with sort of a template, the last version of the drawing without the drawing actually in it, and I'm using this list. I'm using the list, you know, I'm checking off each one. So now I'm doing number 11, which is searching. So, you know, I test out a pencil or two, get my perspective set up. I'm using the perspective in a very rough way. I'm not really trying to, you know, get perfect perspective. And as you can see, the sketching process is, you know, it's rough. I've sped this up quite a bit. This whole project took me quite a while, and but here's, you know, the basic idea. So then I start, after I get a rough idea for a sketch, then I use a pencil to get that idea of what it's going to look like finished. But I'm still just sketching right now. It's just that I'm sketching from an informed place at this point. That's what the first sketch was for, to inform me about, you know, to inform the finished version. Okay, so now once I've got that done, now I'm done sketching. So now I'm going to start really digging into the details. I missed the, I mean, I gave him a skinny stomach, which is, and I really liked it, but he doesn't have a skinny stomach, so I can't be doing that. So this is where I'm really exploring the details and my options and how to go about actually drawing this thing. You know, the first three versions were sort of practice, you know. You kind of get a rhythm going. So now I'm like really ready. I guess I'm basically ready to go to the inking phase, just making a few fine adjustments, and here we are in the inking phase. I am now basically committing to this drawing. Still a lot of you know, working out details going on, because well, you know, I don't have that much experience, and also, you know, in the digital realm, you can experiment till you're blue in the face, and that's the beauty. There's another thing I changed. I had his chest area was all the way down to his sternum, and that's just not how, that just wasn't right. So I fixed that, and just detailing out the trash can here. I messed with this a few times. I finally came to the conclusion that my perspective was a little off. Yeah, goes by too fast. You don't know what I'm talking about, but believe me, this drawing took me over 3 hours to complete, and even speeding that up was like a 26-minute video, so now I've got it down to something like 6 minutes. So I'm not giving you a lot of detail, but trust me, you really wouldn't be able to sit through me telling you every little thing. There's, more details. I felt his feet didn't match the rest of him, so I just took some, I thinned out the lines. So now I'm in the coloring phase. I'm basically probably 99% done with the inking. I will fix a couple of things, but basically I'm coloring, and I'm trying to create a three-dimensional look with shading and value and whatnot. And here, that color scheme is dreadful, and that blue is just too much. Now, to be honest, it doesn't look like too much on the Cintiq, but when I brought it to my other monitor, it was just, oh my goodness, that can't be. So I went back and desaturated the blue quite a bit, and this looks much nicer. I don't think I really would have even recognized. I would have recognized that I didn't like it, but I wouldn't recognize that it needed to be fixed if I hadn't done so much research, or what little research I have done on color and stuff. Here I'm trying to figure out why I have two different shades of black. I don't know what happened there, but that's a long story that we don't need to go into. And I'm finishing off the eyes, get the trash can done. Definitely want to point out that obviously this is too fast to take any real pointers from anyway, but don't confuse this as the work of someone who has any real clue of what they're doing. I'm basically just emulating stuff I've seen. And there I'm just adding some shadows on the legs because I didn't think that the legs were dark enough. And just to finish my thought before we wrap this up, I'm learning. Here he is. I think he looks, he looks three-dimensional. There's a lot wrong with this drawing. It's hard to say there's a lot wrong with a cartoon drawing, but really, there's a lot of style contradictions and a lot of value contradictions and a lot of lighting contradictions, and that's fine because I am just learning. The point of these of doing this 100 pose prompts exercise is to finish drawings like this, even if they are cartoony and uninformed and a little unconfident. I'm still happy with them. I couldn't draw Goardie like this. This version of Goardie, this is a pose for Goardie that I can't say I wouldn't have tried to do it, but I don't think I would have gotten anywhere near this level of accomplishment with this pose had I not been studying the human form. And that kind of makes sense when you just say it, but ever since I've committed to learning, I've really made a lot of progress. So I suggest you commit to learning too.